Good evening and good morning. It is evening where I am right now in Decula, Georgia, outside of Atlanta. But my guest today is Catherine Robertson from Sydney, Australia. Hey, Catherine.
Hi, Denée.
And we're trying something new this time. So typically I just record the audio portion, but I love the background of where she is and seeing her face. So we're trying an actual audio and video. So I have to wear the ugly headphones. You get to see her beautiful face. So Catherine, welcome to Love Thy Number.
Thank you for having me.
I want to let the people know that she has a very interesting occupation, and that's really, I really hate to say occupation because it's more of a gift. It's something she gives as from her soul. She is a gratitude consultant, a Reiki master, and an intuitive counselor. Did I get that right?
You did. Thank you.
And we, of course, met on Instagram because we're not next door neighbors. But I actually found her through her husband's Instagram account and Facebook, and which I found way after I found his book. I've probably had the book for maybe close to 2 years. And his book is Essential Wholeness. And we're not going to go into that so much right now because maybe one day we'll have Eric on. His name is Eric Lyleson, and he works with the Enneagram and spiral dynamics and a lot of other components as well. But through him and his work, I met Catherine online, and we met on Zoom tonight. So tell us a little bit, if you would, about your work with what your Instagram and your website is, the 60-day gratitude challenge. Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure. So a few years ago, I had an impulse to create a 60-day gratitude challenge. And that came about really because gratitude has become such a foundation in my own life as part of a solid practice that has really started to transform my state of mind, how I viewed the world, my happiness levels, my well-being levels. And it had such a profound impact. I felt really almost evangelical about the practice. Mm-hmm. And I found that I was talking about it every day to people. I'd be standing beside someone in a coffee queue or someone at work, and gratitude would come up. And before I knew it, I'd be talking to them about it and explaining. So I really just started to have this feeling of what would the world would be like if the whole world practiced gratitude. And can you imagine? Like,
I can't imagine.
With their hearts, looking on the positive, not dwelling on the negative, it has such a profound impact. So I created a 60-day gratitude challenge, and the Instagram page was part of the promotion and publicity for that. And the format of the challenge was that people signed up for free. It was a completely free service. And I had written a book about how 60 days of gratitude can transform your life. People received a copy of that. It's an ebook, and they received that for free. They became part of a private Facebook community. And once a week, similar to this, we would host a Zoom call. And the Zoom call would be for half an hour, and it would be a short meditation, some teaching on gratitude. Some weeks I interviewed guests. Rick Hansen was one of my guests one week, which was just incredible. That was a huge, huge moment.
Wow. And for those of you, can I just take a moment here? For those of you who might not have understood, I believe you said Russ Hudson.
Rick Hansen.
Oh,
author of The Buddha Brain.
Oh,
Hard work. Yeah.
Okay. Her accent is Scottish. She lives in Australia. That is a Scottish accent. Okay, I'm sorry. Continue.
That's okay. Yeah. So we would have some interview, and then we'd open up for a question and answer session. And we would stop the recording at 30 minutes, and quite often people would stay on the line and chat and ask questions, and it really became this strong community. And what amazed me was that there was 300 people from all around the world that signed up for this challenge. So beyond my wildest dreams, really, about the reach of it, we had a gorgeous woman, Margaret from London, who would dial in at midnight in London. There was someone from Amsterdam. There was people from the US, from New Zealand, all over Australia, Asia. And we
Wow.
all created this community for 60 days. And it was incredible. And people really went deep with the practice, which was part of my hypothesis that this is not just a feel-good well-being tool. It actually can expand your consciousness, was my feeling, that it can act as a catalyst for spiritual awakening. And that's what happened to the people that participated in the challenge through the course of the 60 days. So it really proved that concept to me, that this is a powerful, powerful tool.
And we know from brain science that we can change our brain function. We can change the patterns. And I find it interesting, though, because a lot of people talk about it's 21 days to make a new habit. How did you come up with 60?
So there is some more research that is the old belief that it was 21 days. And I think it was Harvard released some research a few years ago to say that it actually takes about almost 66 days was their figure for to create a habit. So that's just what I stuck with. I thought, well, 60 days sounds good. It's a nice round number. Yeah. So it was a 60-day challenge,
And
which
I know that because I started, and I will be honest, I forget sometimes, but it's a little thing that I set every morning that I'm not just jumping out of bed in a fog for some reason, but just to get out of bed. And the first thing is to take one step, one foot, and then the next, and just say, thank you. Thank you. And then go from that. But the more I focus on intentionally what I am grateful for, I know this. I've read the research that you've shown. And just to let anyone know, she has a PDF that's the result of the research and the 60-day community that you sent to me. And I'll attach that in our show notes so people can see, can understand what the results were from actual people who went through this with you.
That was a beautiful process to go through, to interview people afterwards. And it was a couple of years after the challenge that I compiled that research, because I submitted an abstract to present at a conference last year in California. Just one of those, when an inspiration just hits you as a whisper and you act on it and don't really think anything's going to happen, and then it does, and they say yes, and you go, oh my God, now I have to create this.
Hey, that sounds very much like something a 7 would do. And you are not. We'll talk about your type in just a minute.
Well, I actually applied to do like a 20-minute verbal presentation at the conference, because I like to talk and I like to present, and I thought I can share, and I want to do that. And they came back and they liked the idea, but they said, we're going to put you in the poster session, the scientific poster session. And so that was a huge process to go through. And I'm so glad, because now it's something concrete. It's not just a 20-minute presentation that passed. I've got something concrete that, as you say, can be shared and people can have a read and digest.
And this is not just a little conference. It was in your local coffee shop. I know this conference. It's called the Science and Non-Duality Conference, SAND, which is held yearly in San Diego?
Yeah, San Jose,
one of the Sands. I knew that. Because I have some very good friends who have also presented there. And so I know this is a very big honor. And so I want people to know the research that you've done, what you've presented, and like I said, I'll attach this PDF. But
thank you.
So we alluded to your type just a minute ago. And in our conversation through email before we actually set this up, I asked you, would you be willing to share your type and what you learned from being your type and what gratitude has awakened for you? This sentence that you wrote to me. Let me just read it, and then you can go a little further with it. Okay. So I thought this is a quote that's just so beautiful. I'm not surprised that it's had such an impact on me as a practice, as it's, of course, the antidote to envy and focusing on what's missing. And that being said, why don't you tell us your type?
So I'm an Enneagram 4. Yeah.
And envy is the
Yeah.
passion.
It is the passion. Yeah. Yeah.
What a beautiful realization that gratitude is the antidote.
And the gratitude came for me before even hearing about the Enneagram. So gratitude became a part of my life 2013. I started to practice gratitude. And so that really started to shift a lot of things for me in terms of where I was at that stage of my life, and the impact it had was so huge. And then it wasn't until I met Eric 5 years ago that I learned about the Enneagram. And I remember when he was talking through the types, and it got to 4, and you know that sinking feeling that happens when you just go, oh, that's it.
Yes, yes.
And happens. And so then it was like, oh my goodness, because gratitude just feels like this, with this work that I do, and the work that I'm drawn to do, and to spread this message about the power of it, that it's not just a feel-good tool, it's actually, we've got a lot of depth for transformation. It made sense then why I had such a strong reaction to it, and why it won't leave me alone almost.
I'm so happy it won't.
And I go through period phases like everyone, where I fall off the wagon, and I kind of think I've got enough gratitude credits in the bank and I don't need to do this anymore. And I know all, and I've researched it, and I've studied it, and I've lectured about it and taught about it. I don't need to do this anymore. But when I feel myself starting to get into that negative mindset again, or envy or comparison or lack, the common fixations for a 4, then it's really clear to me I have not been spending enough time in gratitude. I need to get back to my practice.
That was a powerful, another observation is that we don't have gratitude credits in the bank, and that we've got a reserve, that we're good. We're rich enough in gratitude, so I don't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
It is just like saying, no, I told you I loved you when we married. If I ever change my mind, I'll let you know.
Your biceps at the gym, you don't go to the gym for 6 months and get strong and then go, that's it, I don't have to do this anymore.
Exactly.
It'll atrophy and go back to what it was before. So it is a constant discipline, and I think of it like spiritual hygiene. They've got meditation, got spiritual texts that I read, got some guidance that I tap into with spiritual teachers, and then gratitude is another one of those pillars for spiritual hygiene.
Just one of the most important. It really is. And you and I have been trying to get a schedule, or get coordinated with our schedules to get this recording. We were going to do it a while back, and then your wedding was in February. Congratulations. She and Eric are now married. I was like, how about you get through the wedding and, focus on that. And then that was the end of February. It's not been
29.
Yes. So we looked at our calendars and was like, okay, this is the day we planned. And today is actually the first day of our spring over here in the United States. And I want to really emphasize what today is, because we are in a time of crisis and sheer fear and panic on so many levels that worldwide none of us have ever experienced before. And that is because these podcasts are archived, and if somebody's listening a year from now, we are for us over here, we are on day 4 of our quarantine and social distancing, which is the new buzzword. But the coronavirus, the COVID-19, has attacked the planet. And I don't think it's a coincidence that you're here now, because I know you have a lot to say that could help us. I'm sorry about that. Get through this time. And I'd like to hear how you think you could help bring a little calm in this time of panic.
Thank you. That's I had a conversation with my youngest. I'm one of 5 children. I had a conversation with my youngest sister in Scotland this morning. She called me and she needed to share some difficult news with me. And we were talking about what's happening with the virus right now, and just the panic and the level of distress that people are experiencing. And I was talking to her about, yeah, there is, and it's natural for our brain to want to focus on what's wrong and what's the negative parts of life. It's absolutely natural, and right now that's what's fueling a lot of discussions, and that's what's almost binding people together, is to talk about the trauma, the crisis, this really big language of life and death, and it's really quite scary and traumatizing to the nervous system to feel this and then to talk about it with other people. And I was saying to her, yeah, but there'll always be something. I said, looking at the virus, yeah, it is a big problem, but it's also creating an opportunity for all of us to slow down. There's a real beauty in what's happening right now. For years, the planet has been running on empty. We've been working so hard. People have had no time. People are stressed. We're raping the planet of resources, and it's got out of control. And all of a sudden, now we've all been given this blanket ban on our usual lives and told to slow down. Mm-hmm. And wow, we all get this opportunity to just breathe a little, take it slower, connect with each other on a deeper level. As you say, waving to people in the street, and people seem warmer and more eager to connect. And people are now starting to realize, wait a minute, I can't do this on my own. I need other people, and I need to connect. And having this discussion with my sister this morning, and I said, there'll always be something that's happening each day, the sky being blue, whatever it is. And she said, yeah, there was 2 moments today that touched her heart. And she shared them with me. And one of them was 2 robins that were playing outside their window dancing. And her young 18-month-old son was pointing and laughing. And that just filled her with joy, laughter and beauty and tenderness in the middle of a really terrible, sad, traumatizing day. So to end the day for her, she was just about to go to bed in Scotland, to end the day thinking and talking about something that was beautiful, something that was heartwarming, something that made her feel a bit more connected to the world around her, is a good thing.
Yes. And
that we need more of.
I have this saying I keep in my heart a lot, and I actually say it out loud in these moments, but that the disaster, the travesty, the hard part, whatever words you want to put in that, the crisis can become the solution. Yeah. And I believe that. I do believe it. I don't discount that it is difficult, and we are treading water we've never been in before. And even as my type, I'm a 7, I am prone to be that person that this will not happen to me, and this is going to pass quickly, and we're all going to be fine. But I can't live in that bubble either and ignore those who are hurting, those who are afraid. I can't just use that natural tendency for me to say, here, let's find the silver lining here. And what I'm saying is, for me, this has been a time, like you said, to slow down, to actually breathe. I went for a very nice walk today, and actually tried my best to be present, and thinking about you and I talking tonight, thinking more about just the little things to be grateful for. I'm so grateful we're having this conversation. But one thing, I saw someone ask, what's something you'll never take for granted when this is all over? And it got me to thinking, it's the same thing as asking, what are you grateful for that you have, that you can't have right now? What is that thing? Are those moments that we do take for granted? So if you take that word and turn it into gratitude, then the focus becomes, I'm not going to take that for granted because I'm so grateful. I have this, I have that. And the
Yeah,
list was amazing to see what people had posted. I thought, wow, we are in a time that like I said, the
mhm,
travesty is bringing a solution for our crazy
that's
lives.
it. And when we're out of control, when so much is out with our control, we're being told by our governments we can't fly, we're being told by our governments when we can leave the house, what sort of gatherings we can have, all of that stuff, it can leave us feeling completely out of control. But to commit to a discipline where we're sitting down and, as you say, writing down your gratitude is one practice that people can do every day, where you're taking responsibility for yourself. You're taking responsibility for your own state of mind. And it's not a spiritual bypass. It's not a let's just forget the negative and be in denial about what's going on, because we can hold that at the same time, but we can choose whether we want to dwell in that space and feel worse about
Right.
ourselves,
Yes.
or like during World War II, when the warring teams played soccer on Christmas Day, because they
Yeah.
thought, we've got a choice about how we spend this day. Do we want to fight, or do we want to actually bond and connect and be human to human? So that was one of the findings from the 60-day challenge with the poster at Sand. When I pulled out what happened to people
Hmm.
during the experience, there was 4 key themes that came out of that. One of them was self-responsibility. The participants I interviewed, they all said unequivocally that they had a moment during the 60 days of their practice of realizing, wait a minute, I have a choice about how I feel and what I choose to focus on. So you can be swarming in tragedy and crisis and the most horrific things, but you can choose what you're going to focus on. And you can choose what you've got responsibility for. And that was one of the very clear things that people said. They realize it's not everyone else's fault. It's not everyone doing it to them. They're not a victim. They can actually choose
That's
and
so
have
powerful.
responsibility.
Isn't that just the most powerful?
Yeah,
When exactly what you said, we feel like we're being told we can't go out, we can't do this.
yeah.
But we have the choice on how we feel,
Mm,
how we react about it.
yeah.
That's why I love that we're talking at this time.
Well, this is a big part of why we're in this position, because people have handed over their power to other forces, corporations, governments, or they want to blame everyone else for the problems in their life,
Yes.
looking for a magic bullet or solution for something, when in fact it takes deep, so as you know with the work you do as well, deep self-reflection, inquiry, really seeing what part do I have to play in this dynamic that's happening, what part have I got to play in the oceans being polluted,
Right.
um, the pollution in the sky, and all the toxins in our food system, what part have I got to play in that? And that's a confronting, delicate place for people to move into, um, because it's going to bring up a lot of stuff. That's going to bring up a lot of things that people have been wanting to avoid, distract, and numb out. And that's what modern life has been really good at doing.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
We are very reactive. But
very,
yes. So we get into crisis situation and then it's like, oh, okay, now I'm going to cut out, all the things that we eat that are wrong. And
mm,
now I'm going to try to take care of my body. Now I'm going to pay attention to my relationships, which you just, kind of get on autopilot, and we assume we know what each other thinks and how each other feels. But that we have the power to choose, how am I going to
mm,
show my love? How am I going to
mm,
show my body, my friends, my planet? How
yeah,
am I going to live this gratitude? I love this. I know I
yeah.
keep saying that, but
It's
I
a
just
good
do.
conversation to have. Yeah, it's a good conversation to have, because
It
it's
is.
it's a very humbling space when you reach that moment of, I'm doing this to myself. And if you're caught in a negative mindset, and this is where I was many years ago, back in 2012 and 13, was, this is not fair. The
Right.
world's doing this to me, poor me. This is just what my life looks like. It's not fair. that was the story in my head. That's how I lived my life. Very unsatisfied, deeply angry, and in denial that I had something to do with that. And so it wasn't really until my healing journey began and gratitude came in, and that realization of, oh, I'm doing this to myself.
Oh, wow. It's it's exciting to know that, and it's also humbling to know
Yeah.
it is up to me. And I can't,
Yeah.
I, I understand, I'm not saying you, that I can't
Mm-hmm.
continue to blame the things in my
Yeah.
life that I want to label as you are the problem. You are the
Yeah.
reason there's,
I'm feeling this way.
yes,
Sure.
there's unhappiness in my life.
Yeah.
And yes, and another, for me, part of my journey in that is really understanding how the Enneagram has worked in my awakening of how other people feel and think.
Yeah.
And I've said this before on a podcast with a couple other fours, that I feel like the the four energy has been a missing piece for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the more I have connected with people who are of that type, that I don't even know if I knew any fours like in my younger days.
Yeah.
I can't think of who, but the more I have been free and open to go, there's a gift that
Yeah.
they have that I need. And oh my gosh, to see where you can go with understanding the hard part of life, um, and then incorporating your sense of what you called as the antidote for envy, that this gratitude allows you to experience all the emotions. It's not a way
Mm-hmm.
to say, oh, I'm not going to feel that anymore. It
Yeah.
allows you to understand it. And so this is why I absolutely love connecting with Force, because you have opened up such a space in my heart to
Oh.
understand when the people who might naturally rub up against, I mean, great on my nerves, to get into that and understand how they're thinking, and to actually be grateful for
Mm-hmm.
what they have to teach me in my life. It's just
That,
been,
yeah, that's huge.
it's just been so huge.
And
So
it is a really nice compliment, the 4 and 7, we're not afraid of the darkness.
I
We're
know.
not afraid of going deep, and we want to go deep. I have a low tolerance for superficial conversation. I don't have,
I know this.
I'm a sexual subtype too. So, I really want to
Oh,
go, I want the connection, and I want to know how you really feel. I don't want you just to tell me what I want to hear. Um, so I often struggle with being more playful or being more lighthearted or see more opportunities, and that's 7 energy. So it's really nice for me. And I don't have many 7s in my life, so it's really nice to sort of have that balance as well of the lightness and of the joy and of the sense of opening up to new opportunities, rather than 4s, we can get stuck in our drama and our pain and our suffering as well. So you don't want to hang out
I'm
there
not
too
laughing
long.
at you.
You don't
I'm sorry, what? You don't want to what?
want to hang out there too long in the
Oh,
darkness and the melancholy.
no, but you make it a safe place for those of us who um, have been afraid to go there. And so I
Yeah.
I did everything I could to not have to experience that, and even said, why would I want to? That seems ridiculous when I know. Why should I grieve when I know I'm
Yeah.
going to be okay? And
Yeah.
so instead of allowing myself the time to grieve, let's just fast forward, because I'm going to get over it anyway. But guess what?
Yeah.
When I sat with my daughter um, in a funeral a couple of months ago,
Mm.
and I was just telling my husband this we were talking about it this morning, because I was thinking about the woman who had lost her husband suddenly in a car wreck. And was she going to sell the house? Would she still live in that house? Oh my goodness. wonder what they're going to have to do as far as, and my mind was on the business of what she was going to have to deal with in the, immediate future. And I was all there just thinking about that. And I looked over, and my daughter, who's 33, well, she was at the time, she's 34, I know this, but she was crying because it was her best friend's father.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly it was like I brought myself into the present. And that's our problem. I know that. The four's problem a lot is living in the past. And
Yes.
yep. And the sevens just want to go to what's in the future here. And I sat there and I just held her hand, and I felt so in the moment and just so connected to the grief that was happening all around us.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me feel more whole than I've allowed
Yeah.
myself to be for a while.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that's what we bring each other, is these missing pieces. And I know I'm using the word grateful, and it sounds like I'm just using this because we're talking about gratitude, but to be able to say, I need what you bring.
Yeah.
You're not the dark side to my light side. And
No.
we can't have a whole day without both.
Yeah.
So,
And we have, you've just said that so beautifully, because we have all the 9 types within us.
yes.
We're made up of all of it. We just prefer to hang out in 1 or 2 places, and we forget.
Right.
We forget, and that's the beauty of meeting other people and other types and seeing that their gifts too, because they remind us of what we're not seeing in ourselves. And that's so powerful, to live from that place of wholeness and presence
Yes.
is really profound, and that's where we'll find our center and our stability, and to be able to show up in life as our true God-given selves, free of fixation and illusion and armor and all those things that we do, to not just be able to be open and connect to each other's hearts in a more beautiful way. And the hope that I have is, through all of this that's happening, that more people are able to tap into and experience that on some level, and
Yes.
they may need some help. They may need help. The people who have not done personal development or have any of these tools or the language or the knowledge, they're going to need our help. Of those of us who have done a little bit more of this inquiry or self-responsibility, we need compassion for each other right now to support the people that are in judgment and fear and yeah.
100% yes. Okay, well, so that being said, and I have not asked you this prior to this, so excuse me for putting you on the spot, but have you considered during this time to do another 60-day challenge?
So I have actually, so I work part-time for myself and part-time for a pharmaceutical company. I work as a sales representative, and I've done that for 20 years. And just this week, I spoke to our senior leadership team, because we're now on home duties with
yes,
social or social distancing.
social distancing.
Social distancing, get the terminology right. And I said, look, this email came out from our senior leader talking about the need for increased connection during this time of isolation. And I just offered to her, I said, look, I can do this once a week. I can hold a Zoom call. We can have a meditation, hold space, do some teaching, make people feel supported and held. That's something I can do and I can offer right now. I've done it before. So they've said, yes, I'm going to start to do that for my company, which is about 300 people in Australia, to sort of bring people into this. So that's my focus right now, to do it for my immediate work community right now. And I think that feels the right thing to do. That felt like a real calling to do that this week. So I will do that. But I have also been thinking about my gratitude community as well, and what can happen there. And I'm aware that there's so much now happening in virtual space. I
Yeah.
don't want to overload myself either,
No.
because holding space for that many people, is easy is not the right word, but I didn't fully appreciate it a few years ago when I was hosting the challenge, what it would be like, and it is actually, it has consequences to
Oh, I'm sure and it's a big commitment. But Catherine, you doing this for your team, your
that.
company,
Yeah,
you've got to know the butterfly effect.
yeah,
Or,
yeah,
you know,
exactly.
I believe that on an individual level, that what I put out into the universe goes
Mm,
out. I mean, whatever my gratitude is goes. And it's what my husband and I always say, whatever we want to teach our children, let's just do that ourselves. And it's not in a vacuum. So I know this. If you've got even a third of your company, a fifth, whatever, focusing on
yeah,
this and putting this out into the universe, the world is going to benefit from this.
I agree. I
So thank
agree.
you
And
for doing that.
thank you. Well, it's the ripple effect. It
Yeah.
works, and that was one of the first signs to me, apart from noticing personally what was happening for myself when I started this practice, was other people's reflections of it. So when people started to say, "What's going on with you? Like, have you won the lottery?" No, and this would be in the schoolyard, taking my daughter to school, and people would say, "Have you got a new boyfriend? So, like, have you got a new job?" And I'm like, "No," and they were like, "But you're happy," and I was
Oh,
like, "Yeah," and people were curious because people wanted to attach the happiness to some external event or experience that was the reason for it, and when actually just going, no, some people are confused and think you're on drugs, but people other people, and some people were repelled by that and started
well,
to
they're
distance themselves. It was too much,
they're afraid of what they don't know.
afraid of what they don't know, or triggering in them where they're not happy, and
Oh,
so that's
yes.
just too uncomfortable. But then there was a huge proportion of people who were curious and who started to ask questions and want to know. And I think that's where the teaching, if you like, began, or sharing my experience, was just people wanting to know, like, why your energy seems lighter, your aura seems brighter, you just seem content, and people notice. So that ripple effect, and then people started to do the practice themselves, and as you say, it grows.
It does.
It grows.
I am so grateful you and I have connected.
Exactly. But
Oh,
I think the one thing I found about it is you know, it can sound just like a bumper sticker, gratitude. It can just sound like some frivolous, be grateful. That's what our parents tell us,
yeah.
say thank you, be grateful. And people go, yeah, 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 thank you, I'm grateful. And it can sound really just without any, it sounds like it's got no depth. Um, but it's such a subtle practice, and it's such a deep practice once it becomes a discipline, once you get through that 21 days, 30 days, and you start to feel the impact, because it starts to move from just being in your head thinking the
Hmm.
gratitude to really feeling it in your body somatically, dropping down to your heart, feeling what happens when you're truly able to be grateful for something, and not just say it, but to feel it. And that's where some of the other research backs this up as well, is you really need to give yourself about 8 to 10 seconds for each item of gratitude for it to start to have that effect on your brain, to rewire it. So it's not just enough to say, yeah, I'm grateful for my health and my family and my house, bang bang bang,
Right.
tick it off a list, I've done my gratitude for today. It's not enough.
Like it's a task.
Yeah, it's not enough. Yeah,
No.
yeah, it doesn't work. You actually have to give some depth to each of those experiences, and drop down into your body, and to feel, and put explanation to it. Why are you feeling grateful for that? So if people can actually not just say, I'm grateful for my partner, but I'm grateful for my partner because when I'm feeling scared or alone, he wraps his arms around me and makes me feel safe.
Oh, I love that.
And so that then
So,
becomes, and to then write that down turbocharges it even more, and adds more weight and more impact on your neurobiology as well. And
Okay.
that's where the magic is.
So I know for a fact that this comes much easier for some people. A lot of people journal or do these things. If you are working with someone, because I know you do gratitude consulting. I mean, this is, you teach people how to do this. How do we start out? Like tomorrow, when we get up, you're already up. We're about to go to bed over here. But do you make this a morning, or is it just what time feels best for you? And how would you
Yeah.
start? How would you tell people today, here's how to start, step one?
I think you have to make a start. So just make a commitment to yourself, just like brushing your teeth. It works differently for everyone. So some people prefer mornings. I prefer evenings. The practice
Okay.
I had works best for evenings. Simply think of 3 things each day that you're grateful for. Make them different each day. Don't recycle the same things, and put the why into it. So make it a decent sentence, an
With a why.
explanation, and why that you're grateful for that item. Write it down and pop it in a jar, or pop it in a bowl or something, or a journal. Just write it down and make that your practice. And that may feel enough. That may be very hard for some people. It was very hard for me when I first started. Each day to think of something, 3
Yeah.
different things, felt impossible. But it wasn't impossible. There's always something. So just start small. Give yourself 3 things, different things each day, with an explanation of why, and then let it flourish.
Let it
So
go.
just let it grow as it wants to grow. But give
Okay.
yourself that discipline of 3 things every day, and you'll see that over time it will start to grow.
Okay. You said something that just resonated with me. And this,
Mm-hmm.
please don't think this sounds shallow, but it
Yeah,
sounded fun. And you said, write it down and put it in a jar.
yeah,
And for me, I'll start out, writing in my journal. I've got all these journals and they've got little pages, little bits written here and there. Journaling is not a habit for me.
mm-hmm.
But if I make it into something, put it on a pretty piece of paper, stick it in a jar, put a bow around
Yeah,
it or something, then it becomes a visual that's setting out in front of me. Um,
yeah,
I'm just saying this for other people
yeah,
who
yeah, yeah.
might have, make it whatever resonates with you, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I have Elizabeth Gilbert, the author, to thank for that idea, because at the time I was just mentally thinking of my gratitude items years ago. And then I read a blog by Elizabeth Gilbert talking about a gratitude jar that she had. And I thought, oh, that's a good idea.
Good.
I'll write it down. And at the same time, I started to do it with my daughter, because my marriage was on the brink of ending, and I knew things were going to change for her, and I wanted to try and get her into more of a positive mindset. And so it became an evening practice for the 2 of us,
Oh,
that we
wow.
sit and write. And so it can be a family activity. And she created this jar. She drew a beautiful label on it. She put her art onto the label and made this nice jar. I had some beautiful candle jars at the time that I used. And so that can then become a practice over your evening meal. At the end of your evening meal, as a family, you
I
can sit
think
down and write down. Have a stack of papers and a beautiful jar. I've now got vases and jugs all around my home that have got the gratitude lists in them. And that's a beautiful thing. When you're having a bad day, you can pull out an old list and reread.
and this is great for children to get.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Yes, especially, again, I'm going to say this is a very crazy time in our
Yeah.
history, and the children are absorbing our energy.
Mm.
So I love this as a family practice, like you're saying. And I have to
Yeah.
tell you a little thing. This is
Yeah.
I've grown up with a mother who has taught me gratitude all her life, and she is it was way before this crisis came along, where I don't know how it's happening or what's happening over there, but for some reason people are hoarding toilet paper, and
Yeah.
it, and it's absolutely ridiculous. So this has probably been like 5 or 6 years ago. My mom she's just wonderful, and she expresses gratitude. And she told me one morning, she said, this morning I got up and I said, I am grateful for toilet paper. And I was like, are you okay, Mom? Because this was years ago. And she was like, no, I'm fine. I just realized what a wonderful thing that somebody created toilet paper and we have it. So when you think there's always something, and that's very ironic that I thought of that right now with.
And you know, like, back to the analogy of a muscle, it does get stronger over time. You don't go to the gym and run 15 kilometers the first time you go to the gym. You work up to it bit by bit. So you start with the 3 things and gradually it grows, because the lens through which you're viewing the world starts to change. So because you're giving yourself the discipline of, I'm going to have to write 3 things at the end of the day that I'm grateful for, your focus then becomes, okay, what is there to notice that I can add to my list? So it starts to then become almost like a little game you play with yourself, of like a treasure hunt of what are those moments in the day that I can catch to be grateful for. And I remember some days I would be writing 2 A4 sheets of paper.
Wow.
Like easily, like that. And some days I need to pull over my car, in the middle of the day to write things down, because I was scared I'd forget by the time it got to the evening the magical moments that I'd noticed to be grateful for. So that's huge. That's massive when you get to that stage, that it feels like there's so much coming into your awareness to be grateful for.
This is so exciting. I mean, this should be, we've got to keep looking for ways to cure the actual virus that's among us right now. But what a way to think about this. It just multiplies. It does. And your life, you become more and more grateful, instead of having to be like, oh, what can I think of today to be grateful for? No, then you can't look at anything without being grateful.
Because it opens your heart when you do this. And this is one of the other 4 things that people commented on from the challenge with interviews. Heart opening was one of the side effects that they noticed from their practice. They had these moments of just expansion in their heart space and being incredibly moved by the beauty of the world around them, or the beauty of an interaction with someone else. That was the first for me that something happened, because I started to cry about the smell of a jasmine bush one day. It made me stop. And I started crying. I was like, I don't do this. What's happening? Why am I crying? The smell was so beautiful that it touched my heart and created an opening.
And see it physically. It physically changes.
Physically changing.
Okay, so you had the heart reaction. Tell me the 4.
So heart opening. People experience their heart opening. And, that's beautiful, and also very tender and very vulnerable for people. So, as we mentioned before, when you start to realize you've got to take responsibility, that's a bit humbling. And, this is where people need coaching, I think, through almost the process initially, or have a community that they can be sharing, create their own community of sharing their gratitude. So heart opening was number 1. The second was an experience of oneness. So they had moments where they went, oh, we're all connected. Not just me living in my bubble. Actually, what happens to me happens to you, and the effect of something on me can affect you as well. Or they'd be out in nature and feeling like they're connected to the trees or animals. So the shift away from the cult of the individual and separateness to the universal sense of we're all connected was a definite side effect for people. The third one was greater self-awareness. So they felt able, similar to, I guess, the side effect of meditation as well, when you give yourself that opportunity to be still and to be sensitive, you can actually hear a little bit more of what's going on internally. As you explained about your experience at the funeral, when you were able to just stop and then be present, you were aware that your mind was wanting to take you on a journey, and you actually went, wait, I need to be present in this moment. So actually being aware of what people they were experiencing was a definite side effect. And then the fourth one was, as I mentioned, self-responsibility. They realized I've got a choice about how I choose to respond to this, and I could go down that rabbit hole of fear, worry, anxiety, blame, victimhood, or I can see that starting to happen, and they would stop, they would catch themselves, they would stop, and they would pivot to let me find something to be grateful for. And so this was just, it was incredible when I interviewed these people. These were the 4 common themes. And the PDF that I sent you has quotes under each of those 4 areas for how people relate their experience.
Well, I'm so unbelievably excited that you are giving us, I mean, a tool that we can use immediately.
Yeah.
That we
So it
can,
doesn't cost anything.
right, yes, and we can begin affecting the world. And that
Yeah.
realization that we are one, now more than any other time in history, we have this, I'm going to say it, it's a gift. This
Yeah.
horrible
It
pandemic
is.
that we're experiencing is a gift of letting us realize our one humanity, who we are. Just, we are one functioning unit, and to take the time to take care of ourselves is taking care of the other. We cannot, and this is I say this, I've said it many times before in my podcast. The reason I called it Love Thy Number is based on the Bible verse, love thy neighbor. But the rest of that is as thyself. And we kind of forgot that part. So it's love thy neighbor as thyself. I just tweaked it and made it love thy number for the Enneagram.
Yeah.
But the truth is, when we begin taking care of ourselves, that's the only way we can take care of another. I'm so excited about having had this opportunity with you. Do you know we've been talking almost an hour?
Oh,
I looked at my clock. I was like, oh my gosh. So we are going to make this part 1 and part 2. And I think it's really worth it. This is something we need to listen to now and listen to again and again. And Catherine, thank you for your work and for your heart and for sharing your time. Please tell Eric, thank you for sharing you tonight. Or no, it's just morning. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, no, I will. It's just a great opportunity to be able to, spread that message to other people. And in a difficult time, it's one simple thing that people can adopt and incorporate. And, I'm not sure how you share your notes, but please feel free to put my contact details on it. And anyone who wants to out or ask a question or would like some additional support, please feel free to get in touch with me. I'd be happy to support or help anyone else that's beginning this journey, because it is a journey. It's it is a beautiful practice, but it can also then connect us more deeply to ourselves, and that can sometimes be challenging. So
so you're telling me my 2-mile walk today is I can't go run a marathon now? that I didn't just do it. I have to keep doing more.
Keep doing it. Just keep with it, and just make that connection to yourself for 60 days and just see what happens to your life. And I can guarantee there will be a transformation that you will appreciate.
I definitely will. I will. I'm going to make a gratitude jar, and it's going to be just fabulous and pretty.
Beautiful. And it just creates this gorgeous energy in your home. And
I know yours has to be, because you
I have heaps of crystals too. I've got heaps of crystals. So
you should send pictures. Put those up on your Instagram, and we'll tag
my
us.
crystals. All right, we will.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. And as I end every podcast, I hope you all get to truly know the joy of who you are by loving your own number. Talk soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Whoops. Okay. I can't find the end recording. Oh, here we go. So thank goodness my IT guy will chop it off. All right.